President Joe Biden says the State of the Union is strong, while he got a lot of boos, cheers, and shouts of "you're a liar" during his State of the Union address last night. Good morning, Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. You can always chime in live and local anytime throughout the show at 217-629-7970. Did you watch last night? What do you think about last night's speech? We'll get a few of the highlights, but as is always, we barely have enough time to get through everything. So we're going to focus this segment just on some of those various highlights that President Joe Biden had at yesterday's speech. Now, of course, a divided Congress, which means you're going to have some eruptions here and there, but the president started off in a cordial tone, congratulating the House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, also congratulating the House Minority Speaker, Hakeem Jeffries, but then he talked about drug prices, and he said he's going to veto any bill that might want to increase drug prices. He also praised increased taxes on businesses, saying that he's capitalist, but he thinks that some businesses need to pay more. Several times, though, throughout his speech, the House erupted in the joint session of Congress with Republicans not really on board with what the president had to say about a variety of things. Now, this is just one example of some of the instances that President Biden found disagreements with those in attendance, and that was in particular when he talked about those who he says are looking to cut Medicaid and other social safety net services that's part of a ongoing cost to taxpayers. So here's that moment last night during the president's State of the Union address.
Take the economy hostage. I get it, unless I agree to their economic plans. All of you at home should know what those plans are. Instead of making the wealthy pay their fair share, some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority. Let me give you, anybody who doubts it, contact my office. I'll give you a copy. I'll give you a copy of the proposal. That means Congress doesn't vote. Well, I'm glad to see you. No, I tell you, I enjoy conversion. You know, it means if Congress doesn't keep the programs the way they are, they'd go away. Other Republicans say, I'm not saying it's a majority of you. I don't even think it's even a significant, but it's being proposed by individuals. I'm not politely not naming them, but it's being proposed by some of you. Look, folks, the idea is that we're not going to be moved into being threatened to default on the debt if we don't respond. Folks, as we all apparently agree, Social Security and Medicare is off the books now, right? They're not to be spent. All right.
So again, you can kind of see how this played out a bit last night as the president was poking and prodding Republicans in the chamber. But he also talked about labor issues. He pushed for paid family medical leave. He pushed for a child tax credit to be permanent. He talked about oil profits, which was another interesting moment. And I would encourage you to check out some of the highlights that there are available online. But he talked about how, we may need fossil fuels for another 10 years. And that was something that, again, members in the audience were laughing, because that seems to be somewhat of a absurd insinuation. We're going to need fossil fuels for probably as long as society is a society, when it comes to not just fueling emergency vehicles, emergency generators, when it comes to the oils that are used for everyday goods and plastics and manufacturing, when it comes to energy production. I mean, a whole host of things. It seems kind of ludicrous to think that it's only going to be around for 10 more years, unless there's some incredible advance in technology. So he talked a bit about that. He also discussed police reform. He pushed for a ban on weapons. He talked about Ukraine, barely mentioned China, did not say anything about the spy balloon that was over the United States all of last week, barely touched on China, talked about fentanyl, but didn't really acknowledge that the southern border is open, is porous, and something that, again, drew some jeers from members of Congress. Then he also talked about the January 6th attack and connected that with the attack on former Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi's husband, which he made some weird connections to major events with what he didn't use the term MAGA Republicans, but if you recall, he's had those words before in the past about MAGA Republicans. Let's hear now just a few moments of some response that Sarah Huckabee Sanders, she's now the governor of Arkansas, she provided the Republican response, and here's just some of what she had to say yesterday after President Joe Biden's speech. And this is typical where you have the president deliver a speech, and then the opposing party picks somebody to provide some kind of response. And here's just some of what Sarah Huckabee Sanders had to say. In particular, what she says is really at stake here in the political conversation.
Most Americans simply want to live their lives in freedom and peace. But we are under attack in a left-wing culture war we didn't start and never wanted to fight.
And she talks about men, women, children.
Republicans believe in an America where strong families thrive in safe communities, where jobs are abundant and paychecks are rising, where the freedom our veterans shed their blood to defend is the birthright of every man, woman, and child.
And also about some more about the culture war, she says.
I'm the first woman to lead my state, and he's the first man to surrender his presidency to a woke mob that can't even tell you what a woman is.
And she continued also talking about the difference between her and Biden.
At 40, I'm the youngest governor in the country. And at 80, he's the oldest president in American history.
And then goes on to say that, the president's failed.
President Biden and the Democrats have failed you, and it's time for a change.
And also says that he's unfit.
President Biden is unwilling to defend our border, defend our skies, and defend our people. He is simply unfit to serve as commander-in-chief.
So it's a little bit of the back and forth from last night, and there's a lot more. Of course, the president's speech was, 80 minutes or something? I listened to it on double speed this morning. Thankfully, we have those tools to allow for that, so I could at least give you a general sense of what happened and what he talked about. Drug prices, taxation, energy, oil, police reform, banning weapons, some foreign policy focused on Ukraine, focused on China, a bunch of different outbursts, a bunch of different heckling, and Republicans responding saying that Biden has failed. There you go. There's a bit of a recap of last night's State of the Union address from President Joe Biden and the Republicans' response. Tune in every weekday morning here on WMAY for the very latest of what you need to know. I'm Greg Bishop, host each and every morning, 6 to 9. Email me, bishoponair@gmail.com. Call in live during the show, 217-629-7970. And also be sure to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Just search Bishop on